transform because you have several of different grays, achromatic grays. Achromatic means that the color of gray doesn't have any hint of a different hue. Okay, so there is no dash of green or pink in it. It's just achromatic. It's really hard to discern if there is any type of warm or cool color within that gray. Okay, so this is called achromatic, lacking in hue. You need only 4 different grays. Since you have so many of them, it might be a little bit hard in the very beginning to choose the right ones. Okay, so how am I going to do that? Well, I certainly don't need anything that bright or that light. Okay, so we're thinking about value. We would like to have different degrees of values within those 4 different grays for creating a successful assignment. Okay, so the way you would like to approach this is, maybe find the darkest. Avoid black though. This is black. Okay, so we don't want black. It will be extremely hard. You won't be able to match this with colors because the value is that dark. Basically, no color is then matching with it. Okay, so anything that is that dark, this is also pretty dark. Okay, this is almost black. So let's put this away. This is fine for the darkest. This is also good. Initially you may have a lot of these, but I would like you to find the darkest, the lightest. Let's see what kind of lightest we have. Don't go with too light, so definitely anything whitish eliminate. This is pretty light. Okay, let's have this for a moment. Think about this. All the colors that will match with this will be really light tints. Okay, so you don't want to have too light because it will be really hard to find 3 additional colors that would match with it. Okay, so maybe that might be easier then, right? So this is how you're selecting. This is almost the same. Okay, this is how you're comparing, just having one swatch over the other. It can tell you, it can help you to see the difference between the hues. Okay, this is actually a really good candidate here as well. Right, now we have to make a little bit better selection between the dark ones. So if this is the brightest, we need 3 more. Okay, this is the darkest. So now let's find something in between. Well, not that much difference here, yes? And we want to have a clear difference because we will be creating boundaries between 4 groups. Okay, so for 4 groups to discern to see them different from one another in terms of value, we need to have a clear distinction or degrees of values between, or steps if you think about the value scale. So you would like to have the darkest, then lighter, progressively lighter, but with kind of to some degree equal and clear differences. Okay, so if we have something like this is like a little of a difference, not too much. Okay, let's see. This is actually pretty good. Okay, then let's see. We don't want to have too much of a difference because we won't end up with 4. Alright, this is pretty good. Those 3, 4. Hey, look at that. This might work. Here there was no hue, so it's a little bit easier to think of value. Okay, value, let's remember, it's a relative lightness or darkness of color. Okay, so we're going to match, we're going to disregard the hue. It can be pink, it can be green, it can be whatever color. We just look at the property of color, that very specific attribute, which is value. Okay, so now we're going to match with each of those grays. So we are going to create 4 different groups. Each group will consist of 4 different colors, including gray. So if we have a gray, we need to match that gray in each group with 3 different values, and I really different hues, excuse me. And I really would like you to start pulling out from the color aid kit colors. And it's a good idea to think from the very beginning about 3 primary colors, for example, okay, or secondary colors that are apart from each other on the color wheel. Okay, if you have a color wheel nearby, it might be helpful actually. You can also print out for yourself from the text that I attached on BlazeView to the module on color. So it can help. So you really would like to, think of maybe you should think about choosing a representative from each of the 3 primary colors. That would be yellow, red, yellow, blue. I have actually green here and a sample of orange as a secondary color. You can mix secondary and primary as well. Secondary, tertiary color that prominently includes the primary is also a good idea. So there is a good amount of yellow here. There's a good amount of blue. Blue, and there is some yellow, that's why we have green. But the idea is just to think of having in each group the colors that are a little bit more apart from each other on the color wheel. Then you will end up with much more interesting, better results. So it's very important to think about, you will end up with separate groups, with 4 separate groups, and a total of 12 colors and 4 grays. Okay. Let's go with this one, right? So this is, we already hover over these 2 cards here, so you can clearly see that this is pretty dark color, right? Definitely, this is much harshly appearing, harder boundary that is being created between this gray and this color. This is much darker. Okay, moving over here, still pretty hard. That's better. How about this one? It's kind of in between. It's like we would like to have a gray in between, because this gray looks really dark. Okay, so let's keep it an option. Maybe we can find a green that is slightly darker or slightly lighter to match either this one or this gray. Okay, let's go with another color. Okay, now we have here a green that is definitely a tint. There is a white mixed in here, that's why it's a tint. And now if we hover over these 2 colors, I will apply over it so there's less of the cast shadow, and then you see that I think there is the obvious boundary is between this color, this gray, and this color. Okay, I think it's a little bit softer boundary when we look at trying to really minimalize it as shadow here. Maybe I should do this. Okay, so you can also do this, right? Okay, this is much more obvious boundary. This color with gray, that darker gray, that's harder edge that we can observe here than on this side with that lighter gray. Okay, so if I look at these cards from my perspective, it definitely matches with this one. Okay, so I would just start having them underneath here. So the second hint for how to go about finding appropriate values of colors and to match them with the values of chosen grays is to use after image. Okay, it's an incredible perceptual phenomenon described by many scientists and also colorists in the past by I believe also by Goethe. So it has a really long tradition, and then Joseph Albers talks about this extensively in his book on the interaction of colors. So it has actually useful applications here. Okay, so let's say I have a couple of colors with different values, and we're not really sure which to match which to which. Let's, for example, take this some type of tint, green tint, and you know, you're not sure, but you're kind of gravitating toward lighter colors, and it seems like it could match with this, but you're not sure, or maybe with lighter one. Okay, so what you would like to do is you want to, you know, you may be in a situation when you really don't know and don't see or perceive matching values. Okay, so this is what I do to find the after image. I'm going to not hover, but actually place maybe a half, cover a half of this gray card to see how it interacts with that card, that gray card. Okay, so half of it is being covered right now. You may not see this actually watching this video, okay, but hopefully I will really see it. So what I'm doing right now, and you cannot actually watch me, my face is parallel to these two cards that are placed horizontally on the table. Okay, so this is the best way to, you know, intensify actually that experience. And so what I'm doing right now, I'm staring at these two cards from above for several seconds. Okay, and then I'm going to lift up very quickly that card, and now I see the value difference between the top part and bottom part, the upper part and lower part. So lower part appears a little bit darker, okay, which suggests that this color, remember, opposites are working here in after image. So if after image is darker on this background, it means if the after image of this card, that ghost, is darker, it means that that card, the hue the color is a little bit too light. Okay, we also see that kind of seems a little bit too dark. Okay, now let's do the experimentation with these two cards. Okay, so we know that this color is a little bit too light for this one. You can also check the boundaries. Boundaries are kind of like hard to figure that out here. But definitely after image, I'm pretty convinced by the way I checked with the after image that definitely this is a little bit too light. Okay, now it doesn't mean that it will match well with this one. Okay, we want to maybe once again check with the after image effect. This is going to work. So again, I'm placing and I'm covering approximately a half of the gray card, and then I'm going to stir for a moment at both. If that's enough of perceptual memory, and then I'm going to lift up, and it's very interesting. I also see the after image is warmer. I don't see this being darker. I don't see that much being lighter. It's kind of hard to figure out. If that happens, that means that it's really close. Okay, it means that this matches pretty close with this gray. Okay, so whenever the after image is hard to discern, that ghost effect is barely visible, and you see that the after image is merging actually with the background. That actually means that you found the color is pretty good match with this color, right? So definitely I've seen some difference over here. I don't see that much here. Alright, so I would stick to that. I would match these two. Right. Placing this color on top of gray. Now I want to cover approximately a half of the entire card. Cover really, really well. Now let's stir at these two cards. I have my face basically over these two cards from a distance of 1.5 feet. Let's look at these two at the same time. And now lift up. What am I seeing? Wow, this is so much darker. So much darker. That after image is so much darker from the above part. So if that happens, there's quite a bit of a contrast value between the lower part and the upper part. That ghost of the color here appeared so much darker. Okay, so what it means, and it proves actually that the reality situation that we have here, that this is way too light in value color than this color. Okay, so definitely they don't match, right? So there was just because previously I was trying to see what's the after image with this gray, this gives me biggest difference. It's apparent. Okay, so there would be always a little bit of a difference visible in after image, but you want to always see, okay, is it significant? It was here. Which is the least significant difference? And that was here. Okay, right. So this is how After Image works.